What's doing? This is Don doing stuff, and you're listening to the Roamin Empire Podcast. So this podcast is basically about art and travel and finding the connection between the two. My guest this episode is a teacher, a writer, wordsmith, and world traveler. I'd like to welcome Mr. Eric Lima, aka LuzidoFlows.
Hey, what's good? Yo, it's a pleasure to be on your podcast. Yeah, I did not have anything prepared as you had prepared, so damn.
It's all good, man. It's all good. Thanks for coming onto the podcast. I said,
no problem, man.
I wanted to talk about art and in any form, and also travel. And I think you, of all people, you were someone who would be an aficionado about art and world travel because you've done a lot of that recently. I kind of want to talk about when you and I first met. It was
sure, man.
It was I had traveled to Seoul for work trip, but then a friend of ours connected us. He's like, "Yeah, I'll just hit up." He gave me your number. He hit up this guy. And then all of a sudden, after a week of, corporate business work stuff, I ended up in a basement of some building, and there were all of these people there breakdancing. That was the first time I met you.
Yeah, man. That almost sounded dark for a second. All of a sudden, I'm in a basement. There's some type of potato sack covering my head. I don't know how I got there. Woke up, vomit on my clothes. No, no. Yeah, I took you to an underground b-boy event, which are really common in Seoul, Korea. It's like one of the capitals. But yeah, man, well, we met a year and a half ago. Yeah, something like that, roughly.
Is it
coming up?
It feels like longer. It feels like a lot longer.
Yeah, man, it's because we vibe so well, so it feels like we've known each other longer, for sure. But yeah, I believe it was Pedro, PR, right? The linked us up.
Yeah, that's right, the producer.
Yeah, the producer in Australia that I had connects with. Yeah. He told me that he had a friend coming out to Seoul, and he asked me to like show you around, and I was like, yeah, I'm down with that, always. You know, because as you'd mentioned earlier, I am a traveler, so I'm very used to being like new to a scene. And one of the hardest things to do when you're, especially your first time in the country, is to establish any type of community. So it always helps to have that local connect. So coming from the opposite side, I completely understood that. And I was like, of course, a friend of a friend is my friend as well. I got you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you want to talk about what you were doing in Seoul at the time? I mean, my story is pretty uninteresting. I was there for work, but you were actually living in Seoul at the time.
Yeah, I was also there for work. Work just happened to be my work just happened to be I was teaching English in Seoul, but that was my ticket to go there because I'm a b-boy. I've been a b-boy for about 11 years now, and ever since starting b-boying, it's always been known among the hip hop community that Seoul, Korea is just like one of those hot spots for b-boying. Yeah. So I every b-boy I met there was like on the same tip. They're just like, we had to come out here. We had to see what the scene was like for ourselves. And yeah, so I've been b-boying for a minute. That was my first introduction into the hip hop scene in Chicago as well as worldwide. I'm from the south side of Chicago, by the way.
Chi-City.
Rap. Yeah. I got a rap.
Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. I'm Australian, so I have no idea. I just keep hearing Chi-City.
Yeah. Chi-City's cool. Some people don't like when you call it Chirac though, cause.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All good. So you're originally from Chicago. You flew to Korea on a work visa, but then was the trip inspired by work, or was that inspired by dance? You mentioned that Seoul is like a hotspot for b-boys.
Yeah, so it was definitely inspired by dance and the dance scene and getting to know it. And I was fortunate enough to be able to actually connect with it right away. I had a friend from Minnesota who happened to be living there at the moment. When I connected him, I ended up joining or started practicing with the crew, like within my second week there, learning under someone who's world renowned famous, B-boy Dizzy. I started learning under him nearly my second week in, and I was like, yeah, I was so comfortable there that I ended up staying for like 3.5 years.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, yeah, man, as you can see, I still got positive connotations. I didn't even expect for us to talk about Korea, but look, I just happen to be wearing a shirt that says Seoul.
Yeah, I like that shirt. When I
Yeah.
was in Seoul, I was trying to look for a shirt that says "I got Seoul" or like "So good" or something punny like that, but I couldn't find
I
one.
mean, I'm sure you could, but it might be misspelled. Some of the English on the shirts there sometimes gets misspelled or has no context. Like it's just, oh man. But it
Yeah.
happens when people try other languages.
You were in Seoul for 3 years, and that was for work. Were you like, I want to go to Seoul to dance, and so working in this school is my ticket in, or was it the other way around?
No, it was very much the first scenario that you described. I wanted to go there for dance, and I found a job that paid for my flight ticket in,
Yeah,
and then I was in a contract that had it to where once I leave, they would pay for my flight ticket out as well.
nice.
I ended up, yeah, I ended up switching schools, but essentially each contract that I would sign to would have me under that, and that's pretty pivotal. Pivotal. Wow, pivotal. I'm just making up words now. That's pretty
Wordsmith.
pivotal. It's like it's 1 in the morning over here, so pardon. um, it's quite pivotal for my story because I've just been raised to just save money a lot. So a lot of the traveling that I've been able to do is because I've been saving money. So being able to have that ticket in and my ticket out was one of my ways to
Yeah.
to save money. In the 3.5 years that I lived in Korea, I did not go back to see my family because of how expensive that plane ticket was and how I was hoping to explore this side of the world while I was there. I'm blessed enough to have family with good enough health that when I came back, they were they were still there waiting for me,
Yeah.
all happy and whatnot.
Yeah.
Absolutely blessed for that. Thank God for that.
That sounds amazing, and I want to ask you a little more about that.
Yeah, man. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But before that, you weren't just in Seoul for b-boying. You were also in Seoul improving your artistry as a rapper. Is that correct?
Mm. I'm not gonna lie. To be honest, rapping had taken a back burner for me for a minute, cause Korea was no more for the dance scene. They have a very well respected rap scene, but I there's a language barrier clearly there, whereas with dancing there's not. So I was there for the dance scene, and then I ended up meeting a fellow b-boy rapper there.
Mm-hmm.
Someone you know actually. He goes by the name of Maxi Z, originally from Germany.
Yeah.
Really cool cat. I linked up with him there, and he actually re-inspired me to start rapping again because he was this young buck, this young soul, a young guy, not just a young soul. He's a young guy who was so eager to get into rapping again. And I actually saw him. We both went to an open mic. I saw him. He seemed really hungry, and then I went up on the mic, and he saw that I knew how to rock a crowd because I actually I was on a scholarship from my university for performance arts, so I'm quite familiar on. Thank you. I'm quite familiar on how to engage with my audience and how to be interactive and whatnot. So he saw this and he approached me after the open mic. Our friend already introduced us prior, but he approached me after the open mic like, yo, man, you got to teach me how to do this. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then we found this nice balance between us where he was reigniting my passion for it with his hungriness and his eagerness,
Yeah.
and I was helping him out with the skills aspect because I had a little bit more experience. So his hungriness and my experience started serving each other to inspire and to inform each other. And then I decided in my last year while I was there in Korea, yo, I'm gonna start working on rapping again. I'm gonna start writing more bars on a regular basis again, to improve my pen game. I'm gonna start working on song concepts, this and that. I ended up starting performing more often, not only just open mics, but actually I did a few club performances also while I was out there as well, with Maxi as well. So I started
Nice.
really, yeah, I started really focusing more on the rap game.
That's awesome. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, and I do remember Maxi. I do remember hanging out with you guys over there.
Yeah, he's a very charismatic soul.
it it was funny when we were there because it was just, I think almost every moment you and Maxie were just freestyling. We'd go out to eat something.
Yeah, man.
You'd be freestyling.
Yeah, man. I was trying to get him up on the freestyle tip because one of the other things, and this is something I respect about him actually, he's originally from Germany, so English isn't even his first language, but he preferred to rap in English. So I was trying to challenge him and push him and whatnot as kind of like a mentor. To like, yeah, man, it's good that you want to rap. Freestyling is also a pivotal skill to also have. So yeah, man, let's get you freestyling in English.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would be walking around and he'd be like, give me a word, just give me a word, any word.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
And in between eating like the street food, you guys would be rapping. That was so much fun.
Yeah, man, really good times.
And you and Maxie have made, you guys have written songs together and have released songs together.
Yeah, we've also done videos together as well.
Yeah.
I think we released 3 officially. The rooftop one, Vitamin Fresh, and the LuzidoFlows one, which everyone seems to really like that one because it's a back and forth type joint.
I like that one because it has 3 different languages on the one.
Oh yeah, I suggest if you drop any type of link or whatnot to any of my work, that's a good one to include, either the video or perhaps the song through my SoundCloud. I would prefer that one. That's one of my favorite works.
Because you had English, you had Spanish.
Yes, sir.
And you had German, which
yes.
Maxie was speaking. Did you inject a little bit of Korean into that?
Hell no. No offense whatsoever to Korean. I actually really do. I really like the language and I respect particularly the written form of it. Like it's so ingenious. I went to like a museum on it, and it's quite ingenious the way the Korean language is formed. But it's quite difficult for an English speaker to learn Korean and vice versa because of how the grammars are reversed. But that's a whole nother thing. Yeah. But in my short time there, I did not learn enough to proficiently rap in Korean. In a third language, man. Yeah. I'm holding down English, Spanish. Chill, bro.
I can barely speak two languages.
Yeah, man. Man, I can only imagine if a Korean rapper heard me spitting in Korean, he'd be like, "This is absolute trash. Stick to English." Not even gonna cross that threshold, man.
You were telling me that you learned survival Korean, and you were trying to teach me some survival Korean.
Yes.
What's the difference between that and I guess an actual learning how to speak Korean?
Survival Korean is everything that you need in the moment or for like the most basic of needs. For example, anytime you want to explain, nonverbal communication is really key. So if you know how to say like this and then you mime it, that's really key, right? That's just like this. It's just like iroke. It's 3 syllables and it means like this, and then it's like iroke, and then you just mime it out, and then boom, you're able to convey so many more ideas than if you didn't even have that one word.
Yeah. There were some other things as well, like "yoseo," "iseo." Those types of things. See, I
have. Or like, where's the bathroom?
Yeah.
화장실 어디 있어요? Like these kind of things.
Yeah.
Or how to tell a taxi driver how to get back to your place. All you gotta do is left, right, forward, right here. Those are like the only things you need to know.
It was much harder for me because I needed to get around and I couldn't speak any Korean. I just
that's
had
rough.
A dress, and I was trying to. I don't know if you remember my friend Kylie. She was in town.
Oh yeah. Of course I remember. I stayed with her when I went to Australia.
Yeah. So when she was in town, she was getting a tattoo, and she was like, "Hey, let's meet up." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Send me the address of this tattoo place." It was all in Korean. And so I had it on a piece of paper and I showed it to the taxi driver.
That's how you do it.
And he dropped me off somewhere like somewhere else, like 500 meters down from where I was supposed to be. I didn't have Wi-Fi. I didn't have internet. I was just
that's rough, man.
Rookie mistake was I didn't buy a SIM card when I got to Korea, and I needed to like Google Maps myself around.
Oh yeah. Google Maps is such a lifesaver out there.
Yeah. I think I think the second time that I was there, I was a little better at navigating around because in Seoul, because I kind of knew how to get to places. It was really easy to use the train.
Yeah. They're really efficient with the trains. But yeah, man, I think one of the survival things to do, if you're ever without a SIM card, this is just from like my experience and whatnot. Clutch survival thing is to just look for any place that would have Wi-Fi. My always go-to, check this out. So if I would get like, I traveled around Europe by bus quite a lot, and one of my go-tos for when I would get off the bus, regardless of what time it is, would be to go to a local and just say one word that was in English, but everyone understand. McDonald's.
Ah, okay.
I would get off the bus. I would say McDonald's, and then I just point my finger to kind of give the idea of where. You know, I might not know how to say where. They might not understand where in English, so I just go McDonald's, give the general idea. They'll point me out. I'll walk, maybe keep asking people along the way. I get to the McDonald's, free Wi-Fi, and then I connect and find out the way to the address to my host.
Yeah.
That's gonna host me there. Yeah.
Get some chicken nuggets on the way.
Not with my budget. I would just stop by, get that Wi-Fi, figure out the address, go there, and then later cook something at the crib.
Travel tips.
Eggs and tortillas quite often. Oh man, not always tortillas though. Man, eggs and vegetables.
Nice.
Yeah.
I guess that brings us on to a question that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, man.
After Korea, you were in you were in Seoul for 3 years, and then you decided to go traveling everywhere. I can't even keep up with the amount of places that you've been to. I think one day you were in Vietnam, and the next day you were in Thailand or something. You were just in so many places that every time I messaged you, I would always say, "Where are you now? Where in the world are you now?"
All right, man. You want to hear the number? You want to hear like the calculations and everything?
Yes.
All right, so check this out. In about the roughly 1 year that I've been traveling prior to leaving Korea, in 1 year I had been to 40 countries and 64 cities.
Damn.
Yeah, so that means less than a week in each city.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Man, how did you manage to do that? That is.
It was very gradual. It was really gradual because the first place that I went to right after Korea was Vietnam, and I stayed there for a month and a half. I was still kind of figuring out my project at that point.
Yep.
I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to travel and continue my art. I didn't know how necessarily. I just thought Vietnam was a cheap place for me to live while I figured that out.
Yeah.
So I could save my money. Always about saving money, man. That's
gotta save that money.
Yo, minorities are like that, man. We're always saving that cash. Sometimes we don't have those luxuries, right? So we gotta save it. That's my family right there. My grandparents, all my grandparents were immigrants. So always on that tip.
Yeah.
I thank God that's been instilled in me. Anyway, I spent a month and a half in Vietnam while I was trying to figure things out. Slowly, I started figuring out that I wanted to do at least a weekly release as inspired by the creative director of my scholarship program in the university. He was saying that's good to do weekly releases. Then slowly but surely, I started realizing that I wanted to do weekly releases in different locations. Originally, I thought that would mean a one-take thing, so I did a couple of one-take shots while I was in Vietnam. Then I started realizing I could do it in a different city. So after Vietnam, a month and a half in Vietnam, I'm going to try and do this to be a better soundbite. After a month and a half in Vietnam, I ended up switching locations to Singapore, which is where I met up with you. And it was still difficult for me to switch locations and then be ready to switch in another location on a weekly basis. So I ended up staying in Singapore for 2 weeks, and I recorded a couple side videos for like another concept that I had of me doing like weekly shoutouts. But I only did one video in Singapore, and it was still like a one-take video. I was still not familiar with the concept of how to do the video.
Yep.
After Singapore, I moved to Australia, which is where I stayed with your homie Kylie, our homie, but your friend mostly, because you knew her longer. You know, shout out to her though. She's such a wonderful soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I stayed with her in Australia, and there was actually a night or two, I believe, when I was in Australia, where she had something coming up where I couldn't stay at her place for a night. I did research, found out that staying in a dorm and like staying in a dorm in Australia, a bunk bed, a bed in a crowded room was like 30 Australian dollars. And I was like, shit, Australia is expensive, especially after coming out of Vietnam. So I was just like, yo, I got to get out of here in a week. So that was like the impetus. Australia's expensiveness was or Sydney's expensiveness was my impetus or my motivation for getting the hell out of each city, within a week time frame. I was like, yo, I'm gonna bleed cash if I do not finish my project and move to the next location.
Yeah. Yes.
So I figured it out. I actually ended up staying with a street musician that I met randomly. Wow. Yeah. Thank God I'm an extrovert with people skills. I crashed with that street musician in Australia, and I figured, yo, let's do an exchange of skills and whatnot, talents. Okay. I'll teach you how to dance, and you can teach me how to do some like card tricks or whatnot. So that was cool. Really enjoyed kicking it with him.
That's a really cool concept. Yeah. And I guess that's like saving money or just trying to connect with people. You take it in a different way. It's like, what can I offer you?
Exactly.
You took it where, you know, what can I offer this magician? What can he offer me, and what can we do to collaborate? I like that concept.
Exactly. Yo, in hip hop we call that each one teach one. Each one has their own type of skill, specialty, and whatnot. And you teach another person, then you learn from the other person. That's what we call each one teach one in hip hop. So yeah, carry that along with me. Thank God.
I have heard that.
Yes, sir.
So
sorry,
bro.
Yeah.
With your project, you incepted this project where you wanted to release something every week. How did your vision of the project evolve? Going from Seoul to Vietnam to Singapore to Australia, so on and so forth.
Well, I had never really heard of anyone doing anything like this, so there was no particular blueprint to this, and I was figuring it out as I went along for sure. Yeah. And I originally just wanted to do a video a week, and then I began realizing, yo, it could be in a different location. And then I started realizing it could be a different city. And then I started realizing it didn't have to be just a one-shot take. Yeah. I could demonstrate more of the city. After Australia, I left Australia and I went to Malaysia. I had like a stopover in Malaysia before I went to India because my next location I wanted to go to was India. I'm going to pause for a second and explain. So when I left my job, as I had mentioned earlier, it was in my contract for them to pay my ticket to go back to the States. Right. However, I had concepted an alternative. I asked, okay, so a direct ticket is quite expensive. Is it possible, do I have to go back to my home country? They said, no, you just have to leave here once your visa expires. So I thought, okay, is it possible for me to take that money and fly somewhere else? They said, yes, just show us the receipt. But I was able to keep all of the money. So what I decided to do instead was to take the money that was owed to me by my contract and fly to different countries that I've wanted to go to on my path going back to the States.
Nice.
All with the money. Yes, nice. Yes. All saving money and making sure. By the way, travel tip, I use Skyscanner, skyscanner.com. I love that website. I use that website to find very cheap flights, and I recommend anyone doing the same to look at that website. Once again, that is skyscanner.com. They are not paying me a thing, but they have saved me quite a lot. So I might as well spread the word to help out other people on that.
Nice.
Yeah, so I wanted to go to India. I had a friend in Mumbai, a contact. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to India, found a decently priced ticket that would have a stopover in Malaysia. And when I was there and I was like, oh, it's a different city. I could do one in this city as well. I did research. Where can I shoot it by? But I was only in Malaysia for 30 hours. It was a stopover.
Wow.
Yeah. And I learned that I work so well with deadlines. Once I got a deadline in mind and an opportunity, I can put in work. Because to me, one of the most painful things is wasted potential or wasted opportunity. So I like to work so that I can at least say that, yo, at least I made the effort to not waste that opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, 30 hours, one city, Malaysia. I started writing on the plane. After I got into my hostel, I recorded it in my hostel room, just like on a shelf with the blanket over me and whatnot, rapping to give some type of sound quality and whatnot. It was still not that great, but and then I needed to find someone to help me hold this stabilizer, my camera and the stabilizer for it. Another resource that I learned as a traveler, I'm just gonna drop gems randomly through this. Another research. Wow, I'm gonna try and do that again for a better soundbite. Another resource. Hey man, don't mess up my soundbite. All right, so check it. Another resource for travelers checking out different cities, especially if it's a new one to you, is Couchsurfing. Couchsurfing, it's an app and also a website. There's like a hangout section where you can hang out with other people, locals and travelers alike within that city, and you can connect with other people. So I actually reached out to someone who happened to be a local who wanted to hang out, and she said, yo, after work we can hang out, this and that, blah blah blah. And then I kind of sprung it on her while I was just like, hey, so I kind of want to shoot a video. Maybe you can help me? She's like, yeah, sure, that sounds like fun. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Right? She just wanted to show me around the city. I'd actually been to Singapore prior. So my motivation was the video, because I'm like, yo, it costs money to fly to a different location. I'm gonna get this video shot real quick in the 30 hours, that window of opportunity. And I did. I handled it. Boom, edited it, and then I switched locations to another spot.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so from my understanding, the project came about because you wanted to, you kind of just evolved on your way home back to Chicago, right?
Yeah, the deadline also evolved because I was supposed to be back within 6 months, and little more and more I extended it as I got more comfortable with my traveling. Like I said, my first location I stayed for a month and a half, second location 2 weeks. After that, I was on like a week, and I started becoming better at adapting and making new connections. Each of the locations so far I had a connect in each location. I moved to Mumbai in particular in India, had a connect over there. I switched to New Delhi. My connect in Mumbai hooked me up with a connect in New Delhi, and I started once again doing these weekly things in different cities and whatnot. And right around the time when I was in, it was right after I filmed in Agra, which is where the Taj Mahal is. I wanted to make sure I had a shot with the Taj Mahal and whatnot. I started realizing, number one, the weekly deadline for my project was so crazy hectic, because I'm like changing locations as well. Like within a week is crazy, because I was changing locations, writing a new song, because I write as I move along. I write a song sometimes based on the local culture as it informs my lyrics. Memorizing it, recording it, editing it, finding a connect to help me shoot the video, shooting the video maybe 1 or 2 days, editing the video, and then releasing it within a week. And that was killing me. And then I started realizing, yo, I'm doing all that. Number one, it's crazy. It's a crazy amount of work to burden. And number two, I was kind of rushing it in a sense in the editing process. And I was like, man, I got all this nice footage that I put a lot of effort into being on this side of the earth to get this footage, and I'm just rushing it to release. And I don't know if I spent more time editing it, I could have got a better reception. So that made me realize, yo, I think I'm gonna stop doing the weekly releases for this just so that I can properly edit the footage that I would be working all the rest of the process. I've been busting my hump to do, you know?
Yeah. Something that I want to I guess emphasize on. You were saying that your lyrics were the places that you went to were informing your lyrics. Do you mean that you were being inspired to write? You know, did your writing evolve? Or did your words evolve as you were going to different countries? Like, and if so, was there an example of that? I mean, when you were in Australia, did you try to rhyme kangaroo with something?
Actually, I would say that I wouldn't say that my words necessarily evolved. I usually work with this kind of vocabulary, like the same of a certain type of vocabulary. And I try not to be too simplistic. If anything, they might have devolved in a sense to make it more catchy, which is an art in itself.
Yeah.
To write in a catchy way. I'm learning. Yeah. So but what I mean is I took it upon me as a challenge, particularly when I got to India, because I knew very less about Indian culture, to talk to the locals, learn more about the Indian culture, and then use that to inform a few dope punchlines in my bars.
Yeah.
And then, or even be informative, or drop local references. More that also came when I was in India, more so than Australia. In Australia, I was so stressed by the deadline that I grabbed a prior verse. And some of the locations I've been to, I grabbed verses that I've previously written. Yeah. I did that in Jaipur, India, actually. Crazy thing, when I was in Jaipur, India, I only planned to be there for traveling reasons, not necessarily for filming. When I was doing research, I learned that Jaipur is one of the dopest spots to go to when you're visiting India. I went there, and someone I kind of met through Tinder motivated me to do a video there, because it's her hometown. So she was like, oh, you should do one while you're here too. And I'm like, man, I'm only here for like a few days and whatnot. I wasn't really planning on putting that kind of stress on myself. Yeah. And she goes, well, if you do one here, I can help you. And I thought, damn, like one of the hardest things is to find someone to help me film. So I'm like, if that's already covered, all right. I grabbed a verse, I grabbed a beat, I put it together, I started working to memorize it, and then we went out and filmed. And then that video that I did in Jaipur ended up being one of my most successful videos, because number one, two Facebook pages, I believe, reposted it. Yeah. And then so that got some of the most views that I got on my Facebook and my Instagram. I started getting a bunch of new followers from that. Nice. And I started really, really understanding the potential of this project in terms of, whoa, I could get blogs to repost my work if I'm displaying their city behind me. Yeah. And then also I started realizing the types of shots that I was using that were successful in that video. Since then, I started having this as kind of like the concept. Okay, yo, this is the project. This is the project right here. I gotta have these 3 types of shots. One that shows the background, one that's interactive with the culture, and one that makes people say, what the fuck? Like this kind of reaction. In the Jaipur video, I had like a monkey on my shoulder, and it was chilling on my shoulder, then he jumped off. And everyone that watches that wonders, like, how did he get that shot? And then that was the effect I was going for. So since then, that pushed me to actually go for all types of really crazy shots in different locations that ended up to be kind of different crazy stories that I end up having in these different locations. I'll
be honest, when we started talking about India, I was going to ask, how did you get that shot with the monkey on your shoulder?
Yeah, so that location in particular was like the Monkey Palace, right, I believe. Yeah, and so it's kind of you buy food. You buy food that would get the monkey's attention, like peanuts or sweet candies and whatnot. Right. And you just kind of had to like tempt them, make sure they could see it, and then you would like call them to come up to your shoulder. I practiced a little bit prior. Call them up to your shoulder, and then you can feed them. In the video, if you slow it down or if you take a moment to notice, like a pause or something, if you pause the video, you could see that I'm feeding the monkey. And right after I feed him, he just leaves. He's just like, okay, cool, thanks.
I'm out.
I peace jackass, boom, gone. And I'm like, and I go to the cameraman. You got that right? All right, cool, because we're using that.
I like that. So as you were going, your vision for the project kind of conceptualized or solidified when you understood, like, yes, this is what I need. These are the things that will make these types of videos and these types of releases successful.
Yeah, man, all part of the trial and error of the whole process. It's just kind of like, I tried this didn't really work. Holy crap, that was really successful. How do I re-emulate that? And then some of the things that I did, I didn't really expect to be that successful. Like I did another challenge to myself. I think this is like the shortest time span I've ever done. I had 10 hours in an airport in Jordan, Amman, Jordan. It was a layover technically, because I didn't leave the airport. It was a layover in Amman, Jordan, in between, I believe, Dubai and Egypt. And I was like 10 hours in an airport. I had a negative experience with getting busted by Australian airport security for filming in like a very secluded location. But regardless, even though no one else was in it, no security, none of that, they still didn't want me to include footage of their conveyor belt. So they had me delete the footage and lost all that. And now, even though that happened to me over there, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try and get this airport footage in Jordan. And I did. I had 10 hours. I put together this song, and it turned out to be another one of my more successful videos. And I was like, really? This shit that I put together in Jordan, like in 10 hours, is more successful than something I spent like a whole week on in this other city? You are kidding me. Oh. So I'm like, okay, cool. So apparently my voice sounds better over lo-fi hip hop. I'm learning.
I feel like I'm a little bit to blame for you not being allowed to shoot video near a conveyor belt in Sydney Airport. So
no, you weren't there for that. Oh, no. Did you do something else?
Yeah,
oh,
so
man.
my cousins and I were flying back from Melbourne. We were waiting at the airport. Mm-hmm. So what we did was I put my camera onto the conveyor belt, onto
those damn conveyor belts. They're so tempting.
I put it on there, and then my cousins and I, we danced around it, and I made a film clip from it.
Okay, that sounds pretty interesting because there's movement with the camera and all that.
Yeah,
and they got your ass too.
No. So what happened was they eventually stopped the conveyor belt, so we couldn't use it anymore. But then we hung out there for hours. Mm-hmm. When every time they would start the conveyor belt again, I put my camera on there, they'd stop it.
Oh God!
So nobody actually came up to us and told us to stop.
Are you kidding me? No one came over and deleted your footage? Damn. I guess I just had someone who was having a bad day.
Probably.
Oh, that sucks.
So I have to apologize. Also because it's Australia. Sorry that they deleted your footage.
Yo, in all of the countries that I've been to, and all of the different locations that have been like more prohibited to film in certain locations. Yeah. Only Australia it's some jackass in Egypt made me delete my footage. Every other location in the world, they're like, hey, stop that. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And then I kept the footage. Because they never told me to delete it. I just stopped filming there.
Yeah.
After they told me. Sometimes I didn't, but depending on circumstance. But I was just like, oh man, okay. And then I would play like ignorant foreigner, like, oh, I didn't know you couldn't film. And sometimes I really didn't know you couldn't film in a certain location.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm sorry I cut you off. You were talking about like filming and going in places. But what was the hardest part about your trip? Or what was the most difficult country to be in, sort of thing?
Hardest part, probably money.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Keeping a tight budget in particular. Not like I didn't have money. I'm not saying like I was broke, nor am I currently broke. But if I lived like I just had cash to give away, I wouldn't be able to last as long as I did.
Yeah.
Like if you have $100 and you spend 70 of that. I'm sorry, I was about to do the whole metaphor, but I'm too tired to even go through with that metaphor. You know what I'm saying? Basically, you got to make it last. You got to make it
Be
stretchy.
mindful of your money, of your budget.
There you go. Look at that. Look at that, Don. You're getting better at this. Summing up my words when I don't make sense at 2 a.m. on my time zone. But anyway, yeah. I'm sorry. What were we talking about?
That's all good, mate. That's all.
I'm just playing. Real quick. I want to give a shout out to this background I got going on right here.
Yes.
I'm really proud of it. So my background, I'm half Mexican, I'm half Guatemalan. My dad's actually from Guatemala. He was born there, came over when he was like 3. And this blanket right here is Guatemalan textiles. Different designs, like from different locations and whatnot, essentially. But I had this since a child, and I love this blanket. I sleep with it, and I put it up to do a verse, and I just kept the background because I loved it so much.
Nice. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, man. I'm very aesthetic with it. You could see that in any of my videos at LuzidoFlows, LUZID. I need to be working on my promo game. LUZID. Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. You better chop this up into like little snippets to be putting up on your Instagram and whatnot.
Mate, I'll give you the audio and I'll give you the video as well, so you can do whatever you want with this stuff.
Just add more work for my plate. Okay, that's great. man, I'll give you my job too.
Oh, you want to cut it up? Here you go. There you go, mate. You can do what you want.
If anything, send me like the full one, and then I'll chop it from there. I don't want to be syncing audios and shit.
Yeah, oh, that's a difficult part. So you were in. So yeah, speaking of Guatemala, you were in South America.
Yes, I was. Just for sake of explaining the evolution of my project.
Yeah.
I'd like to briefly take a trip or a detour over into Europe.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah. So
let's jump over to Europe then.
I love Mexico. I actually really enjoy my time in Mexico. I love Mexico and South America, but real quick, straight over to Europe. Yeah. So as I was developing my project more in mind, I stopped off in England because Maxi was there, and also because I'd never been to England. It was one of the checklists of the locations I wanted to go on my way home.
Yeah.
I was planning to go to England and then to go back to the States, but then I realized something, and this is pretty pivotal for me. I realized that Europe is so geographically small, and they have so many options, cheap options, from going from city to city.
Okay.
Now, prior to that, I'd been paying full cost. Well, not full cost. Like, I still buy them on the dope website to get budgets and sales and all that. But I'd been paying the cost of a flight ticket to record in a different city.
Right.
And sometimes those flight tickets would be anywhere from like $100 or more. And then I started realizing, I could be taking buses from city to city, country to country. This would be one of the cheapest ways that I could generate new content for my project. So I was like, okay, from London, I found another option. I did a ride share through a website or through an app called BlaBlaCar, which is what I found out from a local European friend that they use that over there. I used a ride share, which was even cheaper than a bus, to go from London to Paris. And once I hit mainland Europe, I started taking buses that ranged anywhere from like 10 euros to 50 euros, something like this. Or like, I think it was like 15 to 55 or so US dollars, something like that. I was switching, like the largest distance was to Greece, to Athens, because Greece, that part of Greece was like all the way down south. That was like one of the most expensive buses. But a lot of these buses were like $15 to $25 to go from country to country.
Yeah.
So I was doing this. I was staying with either local b-boys, because that's a b-boy community that we usually host each other, because it's just like, you're in the hip-hop scene too, you're a b-boy, you've been spending years of your life in this passion that we both share. Stay at my place, I got you, no worries. And then I'll be like, cool, I got you on groceries, and it's kind of like a mutual thing. or I'd be using that app that I had mentioned earlier, Couchsurfing, because I had hosted people at my place through Couchsurfing, and then once they see you hosted people, they're more willing to host you. So I was using those two resources. I stayed in a hostel maybe just, I want to say like maybe as low as 10% of the time I was staying in a hostel. That's a hostel, not even a hotel, a hostel. That's how tight I was on my budget. And I was cooking at home most of the time, not eating out. And then some of the other times when I was eating out, I will admit, I did manage to hustle a few meals here and there. Remember that magician in Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah. He taught me an interesting magic trick that would make it seem like I would make a bet with someone and it seemed like they were gonna win, but it's a magic trick. I know how to do the magic trick, so I would be the winner in the end because I know how to find their card. So I use that as kind of like a hustle as well. Not through much, not like crazy money. I'd just be like, yo, okay, if I flip your card next, you buy me something real cheap to eat.
Yeah.
Like a $3 like burrito, something like that.
Right.
And they're like real confident that I don't know their card. And then I flip it and they're like, damn, all right, let's go get you that burrito. And I'm like, yes, food for the day.
Nice.
That was what my discipline and hustle and budget was like, and yeah, my growing comfort with switching locations and with sleeping on buses is what continued to motivate me to push through and to continue with my project. And by the time I got to South America, I knew, I'm gonna just take buses all the way through. I'm gonna just be taking bus from country to country. Yep. I'll admit it's a little less safe out there and surprisingly more expensive than Europe because damn, in Europe, a lot of people travel in between countries more often, so like their buses fill, so the prices can be lower. But in Central America, not as many people travel in between. I went through plenty of buses that had a lot of empty seats and whatnot, so their prices were higher. And I'm like, really? I didn't predict that, but damn. But anyway, still much more cheaper than taking a plane, obviously. And through these tactics of me finding ways to find the cheapest way to get from city to city, through those tactics, I was able to travel as much as I did. I sacrificed comfort. To save money.
Yeah.
Not the wisest thing, but it's what got me as far as I did. And honestly, that was one of the biggest challenges. I sacrificed not just my budget, my second, sometimes first biggest challenge in this whole trip journey is sacrificing comfort as long as I had been sacrificing. Even for my stomach, when I would have to sacrifice to not eat as much, to only eat 2 meals a day, sometimes 1 meal a day for my budget, depending on, because my bank sucks. Sometimes I couldn't even use my card to get money out, and I just had to do that sometimes.
Damn.
But yeah. So yeah, comfort was one of my biggest sacrifices. So once I started learning how to do that, I was able to continue to push myself, sleep on buses, wake up in a new country, make my connections, and film. It got to a point where I was on such a tight deadline when I was in Europe, actually moving from Athens, Greece to Slovenia, Celsia, Slovenia. I had a producer connection out there who wanted to do work. He gave me a date that he was free. I didn't know what his work schedule was like, but he gave me that date. And then I also had another date to be in Switzerland for a performance. So I was like, I had to work with these dates and I had to go through all the rest of the countries. I went through a moment when I had a moment where I went through a country a day for 5 days in a row. That means I would sleep on a night bus, wake up, find a place to put my things, in a hostel usually, find a person to help me film during the day, hop on another night bus, and do it again for like 5 days in a row. Yeah. And that was just like fear. That was again with that motivation of, I don't want to waste this opportunity. I'm in this country. I have a really cheap opportunity to film, to add another city to this tour that I'm doing to my project as a whole. And I didn't want to waste it. And nearly every single location that I've been to, I was able to find someone to help me film, minus one of those countries. But I had a concept for how I would video edit with that. Luckily, I invented a concept, artistically speaking, to deal with that.
Yeah.
I did it like a selfie angle, but snapping my fingers so that I don't want to get into it too much. But I had a concept to cover that. But I knew once I was able to do that, I was able to go through like 5 different countries on a daily basis. I knew I could do whatever I wanted to after that in terms of my will.
Yeah.
In terms of my will, not as like illegal stuff I couldn't do, obviously. But in terms of my will, I knew that once I was able to accomplish that, I can handle whatever. And in the middle of that streak of cities, I ended up filming. Once I arrived in Slovenia, actually that was one of my roughest nights. I wasn't even prepared for. I had 1 day break after the daily
videos, daily shooting.
Yeah, the daily videos, daily moving through different countries.
Right.
After 5 days, I had 1 day break to give to myself. I slept a lot that day. I still went out and filmed to get a little extra for my concept, but I slept a lot that day. And then the very next day, I had scheduled a bus, the cheapest bus that I could find. It was like $5. I couldn't believe it. $5 from Croatia, Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, to go to the capital of Slovenia, Ljubljana. And that bus ended up getting canceled without telling me. I showed up early. I asked them where I was gonna go, where I need to go, what platform I need to go to catch the bus. They didn't say shit. And then I go, bus never comes. I go back. I'm like, hey, that bus didn't come. Oh, that bus got canceled. I'm like, really? I came to you and you could have told me that beforehand? They're like, well, we can refund your money. I'm like, oh my God. I need to get the next bus because I need to be in that country by tomorrow. That's when I had scheduled. And I wasn't even meeting that producer in the capital. I had to meet him in a different town. So I had to get to the capital and I was like, man, I got it. So it was really stressful, right? This is like part of the project you never really see. Is me actually moving from location, city to city. But so I ended up going. I was like, okay, what's the next one available? Next one's at 11:30. Oh, like, can I get a ticket for that one? Sure. And then they made me pay the difference between the tickets. I was like, you really? After canceling my... Okay, whatever. I paid for it. I got the 11:30 p.m. bus from Zagreb to Ljubljana. When I arrived, that's when I learned something painful. I learned that in the capital of Slovenia, Ljubljana, the hostels are not 24/7. So even though I had a reservation at a hostel, when I arrived at 2 a.m, they were closed. There was no one manning it. The doors were locked. There was no way for me to get into the hostel. I was not ready for that to be that night after all that. I was not ready, but that was one of the roughest nights of my journey where I was essentially without a location to sleep, without a place to sleep for one night in Slovenia. That was like 1 degree Celsius weather. And I was not properly dressed for winter necessarily because I had not expected to stay this long into my journey. I expected to be back home at this point. I didn't think I was going to stay as far. I just kept pushing because I saw opportunity. And I experienced sleeping outside for like 3 hours, but I had a stomach ache on top of it. It's just like, fucking my luck was just like, double kick in the crotch for that night. And then I ended up 5 a.m. is when the train station opened. I went straight to the train station just to get the heat. I tried sleeping there. Security guard woke me up like, fuck you too. Like, okay.
I'll sleep here.
Can't be here. Or you can't sleep here. I could be there. And I was like, well, at least there's heat. So I started warming myself up. And then I caught the first train to go to the location where I'm supposed to meet the producer. Still ain't got a SIM card. I'm still banking off the Wi-Fi. Yeah, right. Local Wi-Fi. Still doing that thing. There was a McDonald's at the train station. But yeah. So then I go to the other place, and luckily he was up early enough to get me. And then I'm like, yeah, man, I didn't sleep last night. He's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, but I know we had today set, so I'm ready. And he's like, well, you need a coffee? I'm like, okay, that would be nice. And that same day, I was basically sleepless with a stomach ache in 1 degree weather outside. I was in the mountains to film, the cold ass
Wow.
mountains. Why? Why? Because I had the opportunity and I didn't want to waste it.
Yeah. Holy crap.
Yeah, man.
Holy crap. I am still so amazed by this. Like, I see, I didn't even know that story. I've been trying to keep up with you and catch up with you during your journey. But I'm so amazed that you were able to do all of these things within the past year. Travel through so many countries. Man, I can't even imagine. Like, I'm so blown away just by that story alone. I'm sure you have hundreds of stories.
I have my share.
I think, okay, so a question that I have from that is, could you have, instead of releasing something each week, could you have filmed all of your, or collected all of your content, written all of your songs, and then at the end of the journey, could you have released it then?
Yeah, that's what I evolved my project to, actually. Yeah, I stopped doing the weekly releases. Man, I want to say that was at least by Egypt, I think, or somewhere in Dubai. By the time I was in Dubai, I think it was my last time I did a release that had to do with my journey. That's a lie. After Dubai is when Jordan. Yeah. So by the time I was in Egypt or something like that, I don't know, whatever. So I decided to stop doing the weekly release, and I started focusing on being productive while I was in a different country. I didn't want to waste days editing while I'm in a different country. I'm like, yo, this is the opportunity right now, right here. So I was collecting all this footage. That's exactly what I was doing. The only way I was able to push through 5 different countries in 5 days was by me just focusing on all the other things I described earlier about me arriving, finding locations to shoot, writing bars, memorizing, recording, editing, finding a person to help me film, finding a host, and then filming.
Yeah.
And then I left. And then editing, that one little job that actually does take a lot of extra effort.
It takes so much time.
Yeah. I saved that for later.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I could do this later. That's the most productive use of my time.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Man. So will there be like a compilation of songs? Will there be a compilation of videos about the Luzido world tour?
I decided that once I have things more prepared, I'm going to return to the weekly release.
Okay.
But first, the current thing I'm working on now that I'm home is soaking up all of this comfort that I've deprived myself from for so long, just so I can see more and have more opportunity. Soaking in all of this comfort of sleep and having my own. Oh my God, there's so many things you might take for granted, or people in general might take for granted. Having your own bed, your own room, and privacy. I gave it up so much. I was in so many shared sleeping arrangements where I would share a room with another person, or I'd be sleeping on the couch in the living room where everyone would be moving through in the morning. But while I'm soaking up all this comfort, now that I'm back home, I also have a local studio connection. So I'm recording weekly to have all these songs that I've made more professionally recorded.
Yep.
That way all the sound quality is better and on point for when I start doing the weekly releases. I also want to improve my skills as an editor. Once again, a lot of this is like on me to save money. Again, to be able to do all of this is my life's work essentially right now. To be able to do all this, I'm taking the burden of a lot of this work so that I can release it. So I want to improve my editing skills, and then once I get to a semi-comfortable point, because sometimes I just push myself because otherwise I'll never do it. Once I get to a semi-comfortable point, that's when I'll start returning to my weekly releases, and then you'll get to see me in these different locations that I've planned out. I already have like at least 50 50 videos, 50 cities worth of content to still release, and some that are in compilation form of me shooting one song in different locations. I've done that at least for 2 concepts.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing those videos. I'm looking forward to hearing the songs. I really want you to write, tell these stories, man, because I think what you've accomplished within the year or so, how many countries that you've traveled is amazing. Amazing, man. I think anyone who says otherwise is sorely mistaken.
Thank you very much. I'm currently working on in spare time. I try and take these days I try and take an hour a day to at least maybe an hour a day to focus on how to organize a book. I've actually kept a journal on a lot of these locations that I've been to. It took me till Europe to figure out, I should probably keeping a journal of this. Skipping Egypt and Dubai, all these really dope places, which I still have memories of and I can still write on. But a daily journal I started keeping by the time I was in Europe. So I have journals, daily entries of a lot of these adventures that I have just on reserves for work there. And I'm currently on my day-to-day schedule. I'm taking time out to write articles in terms of TripAdvisor articles, just reviews of things to kind of warm up my muscles in terms of writing. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also taking time off to consider how would I organize a book.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm looking forward to all of this. So I guess to summarize all of that stuff, would you recommend somebody else do what you do? Would that be something that you recommended someone to do?
On this scale?
Yeah.
I don't know about on this scale. It's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
Because some people are not as necessarily comfortable hopping out of their comfort zone like that.
Right.
Or staying with strangers.
Yeah.
Or even being so extroverted as myself.
Right.
Really takes a I'm really blessed about this particular set of circumstances that allow me to do everything that I have been able to do. For instance, my education as a communication arts major and a journalism major, to be able to connect with people and to phrase things in ways that would be like, hey, let me show you how this can benefit me and this can benefit you. Boom. That was my journalism, definitely. Persuasion tactics. That was communication arts. The fact that I'm a b-boy, so I have necessarily access to this global community.
Yeah.
That I've been involved in for the past 10, 11 years. So I have connects that I met at b-boy events from 7 years ago. Yeah. Because I have been involved and because I've also given into this community by hosting people selflessly. It's part of the community because I have access to this community.
Yeah.
I was able to find hosts because I had been a host in Couchsurfing, the Couchsurfing app, because I'd been a host and I have this. I was able to find that because I had all these different resources, skills, and opportunities, and the opportunity to be flown out and get my my ticket paid for essentially one way and the other.
Yeah.
Because I had all of these, I was blessed enough to have that. I would recommend people to travel, definitely.
Yeah.
I would recommend them to try travel, maybe to even step a little bit out of their comfort zone to try a hostel when they stay at other locations, not only to save money but to stay within an environment with other local people. And I recommend Couchsurfing app definitely for meeting local people. I highly recommend that. But I would say I'm very blessed, and I have to acknowledge certain type of privileges. For example, a male privilege. This is incredibly more difficult for a female to do this because it's a lot more dangerous, unfortunately, and some of the different, all of the different locations. I'm light skinned, so that, you know, I'm Latino. I identify as a person of color because that's the political climate of the country where I come from.
Right.
You know, my parents faced discrimination not for their skin tone, but because they were from different locations. They were treated like trash.
Yeah.
You know? So, but I'm light skinned, and apparently outside of this country, that makes me blend in more. So like I come off as more non-threatening. I was fortunate enough with this privilege in a sense as well.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I now those things making my journey easier.
What do you think is the biggest thing that you've learned from your entire trip? The year-long trip.
Man, that's really difficult. I learned a lot, but let me try and sum up something for a soundbite at least. You you can never escape solitude. You really got to learn to be comfortable with yourself, and that'll really help you. That'll really help. Learning to be comfortable with yourself and eventually accepting solitude in the many inevitable moments in your life will help you to push yourself out of your comfort zone, and that'll allow for further growth. Ooh, I'm surprised I was able to formulate that sentence at 2:10 in the morning. That was pretty dope. You better capture that.
Yeah, hopefully that was recording. Man, that...
Shut up! Don't play with me, man. Check right now. Make sure you're recording.
That's recording.
Check.
Recording.
Okay, good.
Woo! Yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up. And I wanted to thank you again for coming onto the podcast and telling your story.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Mate, I've only seen your journey from Facebook, Instagram, and social media, and I've heard a few of the stories from what you've told me, but I'm really, really excited to hear the full story. I can't wait to see a book, or I can't wait to just see more of the content that you've created from this amazing journey.
Word, I look forward to creating. This is a huge project for my whole life. I don't know if I could. I would love to top this. My next challenge would be to top this, but yeah. But yeah, I look forward to releasing all this, to showing my journey. Everything that I sacrificed and worked so hard for in the past year, I look forward to releasing and proving it.
Thanks
no
again,
problem. And if any of your listeners or viewers are interested, you can find any of my work at LuzidoFlows. That's @LUZID to the O flows. LUZID to the O flows. Instagram, Facebook, SoundCloud. I don't really use Twitter, but why not? Holla.
All right. Cheers, bro.
Peace.